Guys, it's Jacob from StringBuzz here, stringbuzzworld.org being a music journalism site, links are in the description down below, and we have a brand new list sort of thing for you again today. This is the second time I've done this sort of list. I do it on the site quite often now, and I'm trying to transition that onto the YouTube channel, and it's from best to worst, and it's the albums of Black Sabbath, the Aussie years in particular. So I'm going to refer to the original article as I usually do for these videos, so I hope you enjoy. If you didn't already know, this week Black Sabbath bowed out and performed their last ever gig together, just up the road actually in Birmingham. Yeah, fairly close to me. I'm gutted I missed that one. If you didn't already know as well, they are a huge inspiration as to why I learned how to play guitar in the first place, and as to why I want to enter the music industry. And yes, I do have a tattoo of these guys as well. And yes, this is becoming a bit of a strange pattern at this point, because two lists, two tattoos dedicated to them, but this is the last one, I swear, I promise. Anyways, would there be a better time than now to really rank their albums? No. Yeah, that was a rhetorical question. Oh, and before I forget, as a quick disclaimer, I will only be ranking the albums as Ozzy as part of the group, as I felt that was the definitive Sabbath experience, and I will not be including any compilation albums. This is not because I don't like Dio. I'm a fan of Dio. I was never into Black Sabbath as much during the Dio years, but I would like to separate that list for maybe another time, because I think this last gig is more as Black Sabbath as that original collective. So yeah, enjoy anyway. Number 1, and to start this list off, my favourite has to be Volume 4, which was released in 1972. So yes, it's quite an unusual pick for my favourite album by the group, but it's definitely the one that influenced my music taste the most, especially from a young age. Not only is it one of the most varied metal listens you'll have in your lifetime, and that begs that you've actually listened to it by now, which if you haven't, listen to it, I think that's self-explanatory, but it also has what is, in my opinion, Frank Zappa's opinion, John Bonham's opinion, and Beck Hansen's opinion, the best rock track that has ever been made on its playlist, on its runtime. That track being the unbelievably catchy and re-listenable song, Supernaut, the song I've probably listened to most in my entire lifetime. I used to listen to that song about 6 times a day when I was growing up. But every single song on this album is timeless in my opinion, whether it's Ozzy's harrowing rendition of Changes, which I've done a cover of before. Yeah, I'm not going to link it because it doesn't exist anymore. The immensely well-arranged track, Snowblind, or the soothing, visceral instrumental track, one which I think is highly underrated, and that's Laguna Sunrise, if you couldn't tell already. Struggling to get all these words out, it's a lot of compliments, I guess, a lot of adjectives. In my opinion, it's the best album Black Sabbath have ever made, and it's in my top 10 favourite albums of all time, so it's definitely got to top this list, let's be honest. Coming in at number 2 in our penultimate spot, we have Black Sabbath, the self-titled album, if you can already tell, and that was released in 1970, the group's debut album, and the album that created heavy metal. But let's be honest there, it practically created heavy metal. This record had to be towards the top of this list. Again, it had so many timeless tracks and significant moments, but it also had a song in it which really defined the group for me. Warning is proggy, is masterfully performed, is a good 20 plus years ahead of its time, has amazing instrumental performances from each and every member, and it proves the diversity and complexity of the group's sound and how different it was in comparison to many other emerging metal groups. Then you've also got the track Nib, famously named, well, it's N-I-B, but it's famously named after the look of Bill Ward's beard during the time, because apparently it looked like a pen nib. And that track possesses one of the sweetest intro bass solos and one of the most recognisable riffs in rock history. So just an awesome album, and perhaps also in my top 10 for favourite albums of all time. Coming in at number 3, we have Master of Reality, which was released in 1971. A common fan favourite by many, Master of Reality is just Black Sabbath doing what they do best. It's got a deserving 5-star rating from AllMusic and Q2 magazine/online sources, which have been around for just forever at this point, and it's just such an easy pick for this spot. Sweet Leaf has probably my second favourite, I'd say, Sabbath riff as the driving force of the album, and Children of the Grave is an amazing track when performed live. I definitely recommend you watch any live performance they've done of it. It's unreal. It's just a really focused and concentrated effort, and sure, we didn't get much in terms of like experimentation or deviation from the typical Sabbath sound on this record, but during the period that it came out, we didn't really need much of that, to be honest. More of the same was the way forward for the group. Although there are 1 or 2 tracks which I don't typically listen to very much anymore on this album, I must say that it's a blasphemous move to really skip through any of the songs on this album, so Bad me. Coming in at number 4, we have 13, which was released in 2013. 13 is the latest and perhaps even the last album released by the group, and they did a great job of summarizing their sound and pushing it back out into the modern audience. Depending on how thorough you know the group's discography at this point, each track on this album plays like homage to a period in Black Sabbath's collective career. The album kicks off with 2 8 to 9 minute long tracks that you can't help but really be blown away by. They also won a Grammy for Best Metal Performance on this album, their first in 14 years, and that just sort of scratches the surface for the accolades I'd love to give this album. Loner is very reminiscent of NIB, End of the Beginning is a lot like Warning, Zeitgeist, or Zeitgeist, however you pronounce it, is a ton like Planet Caravan, a song which I definitely recommend. That's definitely up there with my favourite songs. And the whole album is just like a fitting tribute to what they achieved throughout the years in their career. Very well mixed, very well performed, and didn't really get the credit it really deserved when it came out, so I'm trying to give it that now. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Paranoid, which was released in 1970. Is it sophomore effort? Is that second? I don't know how you Yanks call these things. So a lot of you are probably expecting this album to top this list, but it's far from being my favourite. Although it's the group's most successful and recognisable outing, there are a couple of tracks on here which I tend to steer clear from now, and now that's somewhat down to oversaturation, but I can totally see why so many people love this album. I mean, let's just look at the tracks on this bad boy. I mean, you've got Iron Man, War Pigs, Paranoid, and even Fairies Wear Boots. Each track is a classic, and one which every metalhead knows every single lyric for, and if you don't, then you're not a true metalhead. Yeah, I'm being an elitist right now. Everyone has owned or knows someone who currently owns this album, and I still listen to it at least once a year. It's remarkably well balanced. The drums in particular are fantastic on this album, and everything fell into place when they were writing and recording it. So yeah, a good showing, I guess you could say. Coming in at number 6, we have Sabotage, which was released in 1975. This is an odd one really, because it's probably, and I'm including the Dio years here as well, the album I've least listened to by Black Sabbath. Not because it's a bad album or anything like that, but more because I just really didn't connect with the songs on the playlist. A lot of people praised and loved this album for its really unique approach to writing riffs and using flat fifths, something which I admire but didn't personally take to on a big scale. Having said that, it still has some great metal anthems on its playlist, like Symptom of the Universe, being revered by the likes of Yngwie Malmsteen himself. A great album for like the more avant-garde Black Sabbath listener. In at number 7, we have Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which was released in 1973. The 5th album in the group's discography, released in just 3 years. Tony Iommi famously suffered really badly with writer's block going into this record, if you didn't already know. That was until he wrote the title track's riff, and everything just flew by fast and loud. This album was heavily controversial for its themes and lyrical concepts, and that's just why I like it. It broke further boundaries during a time where boundaries were just being established once again. A definitive metal listen, and although it's far from being my favourite Sabbath album, it still did a lot for the group and helped them really rekindle a fire that they almost put out themselves. Oh, and here's a fun fact for you before I leave this little segment within the list. This album was their 5th consecutive platinum selling album of the 70s, all before 1975. 5th consecutive. That's unreal. And at number 8, we have Technical Ecstasy, which was released in 1976. Many people cite this album as the turning point for the group. Basically, it was an example of how they were kind of outgrowing each other by this point, and Bill Ward seemingly took a more forward role in its production. Ozzy was at a pretty rough period in his life, and I felt that it did somewhat reflect on this album. Although there are a couple of great tracks on this thing, like It's Alright, which was of course sang very well by Bill, infamously again, I just felt it didn't sync at all with the rest of what the band had done up to this point. Coming off of the back of Sabotage, it really showed how the group were beginning to lose their collective direction and focus. It's not a bad album, in fact it's a fairly decent one, a really good one in my opinion. I've still got the vinyl for it somewhere to this day, but it's just a bit of a letdown in comparison to their earlier work. Coming in at number 9, and the album I really don't like, and the only album by the group, and that includes the Dio years, which I just do not like, and that's Never Say Die, which was released in 1978. So although many people have grown to like this album now, I still feel like it's a bit of a train wreck. It's unbalanced, it's unpolished, it's unfocused, and just completely different to anything Sabbath had ever released, even to this point, even during the Dio years. Other than the title track, it's completely forgettable, and I know every single member of the group hates this record now. It practically split up up the group and nearly split them up forever as well. The tour was even a disaster too, with riots breaking out every single moment and Ozzy disappearing for larger periods of time. So yeah, that never really changed, did it? It's a shame really, and it always is a shame to highlight something a group struggled with and struggled to get through, but luckily the 13 album kind of brought the group full circle to a point where we can truly say that they never really lost that original sound. So yes, that is the list. It's over. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? So if you like this video, then please leave a like, comment what you think in the comment section down below. Do you have any favourites? Do you have any you don't really like? And have you got any memories of the group? You know, obviously now they've played their last gig, and yeah, hopefully this is a little bit of a tribute towards them. I think they've deserved all the success they've always got. I think they are the best metal band of all time. I think they are the definitive metal band, which I'd show anybody if an alien came to this planet and wanted to know what metal was. I'd show them not Volume 4. I'd probably show them Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath will do. I think that's a definitive metal album. So yeah, if you like this video, then please leave a like, subscribe, see more, and I'll see you around next time. Bye bye.